open the press conference with Coach Fabien Galtier and Captain Anthony Joulonge. Please remember to raise your hand, introduce yourself, and wait for the microphone to ask your question. First question, please. At the back.
Bonjour, messieurs. Question.
Hello, gentlemen. A question for Fabien. Fabien, after the victory, are you happy? Are you happy with the content? Well, I think we all agree. To start with, the victory is important, especially when you look at the games, how the game worked out. We were unable to control the game and to score. It was difficult in terms of psychologically and in terms of nerves. The players really wanted to do well, but this Uruguay team was able to create problems for us pretty much all over the field. Hello, Fabien. Romain Maric for Lundi Sport. What have you learnt from this game? Well, in the heat of the moment, it's hard to do an analysis. We need to recuperate and share the pleasure of having won this game in Lille first with this fantastic crowd. There's a fair amount of satisfaction in terms of Anthony's performance as a captain, so we will look at what was positive. Of course, there are a few things that we need to learn and share. Good evening, Robin Dagon from L'Equipe. Fabien, did you understand the refereeing in the scrum in this game? Well, I don't allow myself to talk about the refereeing because in our sport, it's true. It's such an important part of performance that I think the ref wants things to go well. We try to do what we can for the referee to understand what we're trying to do and to connect with the referee. But it's true that the scrum was both a source of rewards at times and a source of punishment and sanctions at other times. So we will look quietly at this and see where we can improve with William. Question for Fabien. I wanted to ask you, do you hear me? Do you hear me? I'm speaking in the French channel. Can you hear me? I will repeat. A question I'd already asked Rafael Ibanez. He told me he couldn't answer it. So a question I've already asked Rafael Ibanez, but he told me he wasn't well placed to answer my question. So Uruguay, the captain and the coach of Uruguay just said they need to play games against high-level teams, that they've only played one top-tier country in the last 4 years, Italy, and they were saying they want to play more high-level games to improve. What do you think of this message from Uruguay, who managed to match France pretty much until the last minutes of the game? Well, we agree with you. If we want World Rugby to develop and progress, we need such nations like Uruguay, who is 17th place today. I'm sorry, I'm getting feedback in my ear. Uruguay is 17th place today. They need to play teams that are above them in world rankings because they have a province called Peñarol who play in the America League and who win the America League. So they're well set up, and we saw the problems they gave us. They've beaten Japan, they've beaten Fiji in preparation. They got close to Wales. They lost against Georgia, but they're a team that wants to play up there with the top nations, but the only competition that allows this nowadays is the World Cup. That only happens every 4 years, so it's hard for them to find other competitions. The Four Nations is, well, it's an interesting subject about developing rugby across the world. If we want rugby to develop across the world, you're right, it's true. They could be an emerging nation like Japan was, like Georgia, like Italy. Fabien, good evening, here at the back. We were talking about reasons to be satisfied. I don't know if you saw the game the same way as me. How would you explain, as a technician, you must have seen a lot of things you weren't happy with this evening? Well, it's our 41st game, so we need to step back and analyse all the games in order to properly respond to your question. But the important thing was the win. What I told the players is we won the game. We're not here to play beautiful rugby to do this, that, or the other. So we met our first goal, which was to win, where there might be some frustration more amongst the players, because we want them to be happy, we want them to play. But I think they took the they filled in their half of the contract. They won. Maybe we haven't had time to talk about it, but they are frustrated. But let's be respectful of our opponent. You should come to the front because you've all got your hands up. This is Gregory. Would you like to share what you thought about Antoine Hastoy's performance? Well, in heat of the moment, it's difficult. I'm happy he played. I'm happy he got some experience. He's been deserving it since he was at La Rochelle. It wasn't an easy situation for him to play in this game, and he hung on until the end. He did his best. I can't give you an analysis like that cold. I'll give it to the player first, but I'll need more time to review the game. Here at the front, then at the back. Come to the front because we can't see you. Question for Anthony. We'd like to know what went through your mind before the game when you came onto the field, and hoping that the content of the game didn't spoil it for you. Well, I was very happy to be back on the field and to enjoy the atmosphere here in Lille, which was exceptional tonight, and it freed me from the kickoff to touch a ball, to hold a ball. This freed me, this liberated me, and now I've played a game, and there you go. Yes, hello. A question for Fabien. Jean-Gabriel Montin from Le Parisien. This team, which is not a premium team, had some pretty good performances against Fiji and Scotland. This was a bit more disappointing. Is maybe a regression that might be worrying you in terms of the dynamic you're trying to set up? Well, you're the one who used the word disappointment. I'm satisfied with a win. And yes, there are areas for improvement. But yes, I think the team and the players are going back into the dressing room frustrated for different reasons. And we'll work on this to try and understand where we can improve. I think from my experience in rugby in general, matches are long and they need to be played. Sometimes in this type of performance, when you don't know the opponent, we don't know how they've prepared. Of course, we prepared for the game, but you can end up being surprised, unpleasantly surprised. I think we were hampered by the Uruguay team, who played their their game plan very well. But in the end, we won, so we're still satisfied. Good evening, gentlemen. Congratulations for the victory. My question, Anthony, you talked about the crowd that pushed you, lifted you when you came on the field. Fabien, you talk about these debts that you have for the north of France last week. So today, did you experience this atmosphere? Did it help you perform better on the field and on the bench? Well, you'll have to ask the players. We're in the stands with the crowd, but we do feel the energy that this French audience brings us, and we're not indifferent to it. And of course, we're very happy to have played in the so-called north of the country, where we don't play often, where there are less players than in other areas. And if we want to help rugby develop, and especially we wanted to share our sport, and that's very positive. We'll go to the back of the room and then over there. Yes, Philippe Lafont from France Télévisions. I've got a question for you, Anthony, a simple question. Were you surprised, were you collectively surprised by the impact of the Uruguayans, the way that they came up to you on the line, what they stopped you from doing? How was it for you? Well, yes, sure. They put in a lot of aggressiveness in the first half, but I think we were also a little bit slow. We weren't patient enough. We could have done better at certain points during the first half, and maybe we could have taken more points, but we were being dominated in the scrum. We wanted to score and we wanted to do well, and they were up for it from the start to the finish. We knew it'd be like that, but they still surprised us because we weren't able to win those last 5 meters. It was difficult for us. But I think tonight we will remember the victory and remember the Uruguayans who gave us a hard time.
Back.
Bonjour, Damien Monday, Canal+.
Daniel Morgan from Canal+. Question for Fabien. Your performance tonight, you'll analyse it over the week. Does it change anything for next week, for Monday, for the plan that you might have already drawn up? Honestly, well, we have no injuries. I haven't seen any injuries anyway, so that is the first positive point. A victory and no injuries. Then, yes, we have things to work on for our third game in Marseille. The plan is in place and things are working out reasonably well. But in a World Cup, it's a long drawn-out adventure where each game is a test and counts in the competition. We've been together for 2.5 months. I hope we've still got some time to spend together, and that will enable us to strengthen the team to make it better. Big moments or moments where we're frustrated like tonight when we win, all of this will contribute to our progress and make us stronger for next week in Marseille. Last question at the back. Oh, you've frustrated someone at the front here. Good evening. Sorry to my frustrated colleague. Axel Meyer from Europe 1. Question for Anthony Gelong. When you greeted the crowd after the game, there was a lot of applause, but also a few whistles. Now, maybe this crowd that was expecting a beautiful spectacle had a spectacle, but maybe not the one it expected. Well, we didn't hear the whistles. We heard a crowd that was proud of us and that was applauding us. But this was a victory against the Uruguayan team that had come to make life difficult for us. But we're not going to rethink everything just because we've had an average game. I think it was a game that we needed to win. We won it. We had some trouble winning it, but we will. What we'll take from it is the victory and the fact that the fans were with us, and they'll be with us next week, I hope, as well. Here, please, this gentleman here. Last question here on the left. Anthony, we know your taste for combat, for fights, these first contacts. Is that something you'd been missing? Is that something you really needed to switch into another dimension? Yes, I needed to get the atmosphere of a game. I needed to be back into a game because training can never replace a game. And the first contacts in this game brought me back onto the right path. And now I'm fully ready to play. It was a bit sad today, but I'd got the okay to play from everyone today. Do you remember? You stayed on the ground a little bit longer. Good tackle. Thank you very much, gentlemen. This is the end of this press conference. We will continue in the mixed zone within 5 minutes.